Speaking of Bellator, we have a Bellator show coming up this weekend. We've talked about the possibility of Horiguchi coming over and fighting Darian Caldwell over there, but pretty stacked show, all things considered, at least as far as name value goes. Not on the prelims, of course, because it is Bellator, and they're kicking off with Gaston Bayanos on that show, but where it really picks up, a rematch, Phil Davis versus Liam McGeary. This might not be the most exciting fight in the world. We're not going to pretend that, but Phil Davis, still a former champion. Liam McGeary, a former champion. James, this is a fight that I think that Phil Davis needs to win to stay relevant because of the Nemkov fight and him losing that. And for Liam McGeary, it's the same thing. It's a fight for relevance in this division, in this company. I look at Phil Davis, and he stands a much better chance of winning this than Liam McGeary for any number of reasons. The downward trend of Liam McGeary's career. Liam McGeary isn't getting any younger. He's 36 now. I don't know if he has the tools to put away Phil Davis because Phil Davis has never been knocked out. He's never been submitted. Nothing. No, it doesn't happen. How do you see this fight going, and what do you see for the winner?
30-27, Phil Davis uses his wrestling. It's not going to be a great fight. I think really what it comes down to is they're hoping Phil will do something where he can finish this fight and show something, because really, I mean, he only has himself to blame for that last fight because it went the distance. I mean, he's got to start finishing fights, and that's what happens. That's what champions do. That's what a lot of these guys are able to do, is they're able to finish their opponents. Now, he's not fighting easy guys, but you still have to go in that extra gear and get it done. And I think Phil sometimes relies too heavily on his wrestling. And for McGeary, I mean, they're not that far apart in age. Like Davis is 34, McGeary's 36. It's not like a huge gap, but I know what you mean in the terms of, like, I think McGeary just hasn't really been the same since he was the title holder. He really needs to win this. I think if he loses this, we might not see him much longer in Bellator. And for Davis, I think they're hoping a finish will happen. But if I'm putting money on this, if I'm like a betting man, it's going to be 30-27, Phil Davis out wrestling him, and they're going to wonder why he couldn't finish this fight.
When I watched that Tito fight, I looked at it and I said, you know what? If Tito gets 10 cracks at Liam McGeary, Tito might beat him 5 times. Like, I didn't see it beyond that Emmanuel Newton fight. Speaking of Emmanuel Newton, Phil Davis came into Bellator and finished Emmanuel Newton and finished Francis Carmona, and we're all thinking, wow, UFC screwed up. This is the Phil Davis, the exciting Phil Davis. Hasn't been that way ever since. He had the Linton Vassell KO, but took 3 rounds to get there too. Other than that, it's been decisions and long decisions. I think he's going to grind this out. I know that heavyweight is not in his immediate future like it was for Vassell or Bader. He told me that he wants to stick around at light heavyweight, and then when he does move to heavyweight, if he does, Joe, it'll be a permanent move. Are you joining us on the Phil Davis prediction?
I'm going to go first round knockout Phil Davis.
Hey.
Joe's just going to do that to say I proved you wrong.
Why not? Why not?
Honestly, on paper, yes, you guys are bang on. It's looking like a 3-round unanimous decision for Phil Davis, but I can't sit here and agree with both of you on that. I'm going to go Phil Davis first round TKO. How's that?
I like it.
Ben Henderson in action. I also spoke to him for the site. He's taking on Adam Piccolotti. Adam is riding a 2-fight winning streak. He's had, I think he started off his Bellator career with like 5 or 6 wins in a row, drop fights to Yamuchi and Dave Rickles. So he's had some trouble, not even at the higher echelon, but one, maybe a few notches below that. Ben Henderson is doing pretty well of late, honestly. He's really turned things around since that early struggle in Bellator, and he's beaten Roger Huerta and Syed Awad. I don't know what beating Roger Huerta means these days, but he did it, and it's good to see him in the cage again. Ben Henderson is a guy that I always at least enjoy the idea of watching, Joe. Maybe not always in practice, but I go into his fight saying, you know what, that'll probably be pretty good. I fully expect him to take this, probably by decision. The last time that he's finished somebody and it wasn't a submission or an injury was like, I think, WEC days. So I don't think that he's going to brutally knock out anybody, but I could see him scoring a submission or maybe riding out a decision. What says you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think he emerges victorious in this fight here. It's been a long time since he got a submission victory. That was against Brennan Thatch. No, that was actually Huerta. But before that, yeah.
That
Brendan
doesn't count.
Okay, well, you're saying. Listen, there's a certain vintage gene in all of our DNAs that just opines to look back at some of our favorite fighters or guys that or girls that we've seen compete for such a long time to have those vintage performances. And I think Benson Henderson will always have that within me to say, you know what, this guy can pull off a crazy knockout or a crazy submission. Because I mean, the brutality that he used to bring to the cage was never ever respected, and I got to see it firsthand in person, which perhaps didn't translate as well when you're watching it on a broadcast. But this guy's a bad man, and he can still do it. It's just a matter of getting everything on point. I think we'll see a great performance by him in this next fight here.
How about you, James?
I wouldn't count out Adam Piccolotti in this fight, to be honest. I think we have not seen the best version of him yet. I mean, we saw a really good performance he had over Carrington Banks, who I think at the time had maybe lost one fight or was undefeated. So that was a good win for him. And they actually, I'm sure you guys know this, but he trains at American Kickboxing Academy, and actually he's sort of been a protege of Josh Thompson. And if you remember, Thompson fought Henderson, so I wonder if there's some good insight there as far as the game plan and all that. I actually spoke to both of these guys. I think this is going to be a close fight. I think if you had to put a gun in my head, 30-27 Benson Henderson. I think the wrestling might just be a little bit better on that end, but I think Piccolotti is one of those guys. I know he's 30, he's not like a young spring chicken or anything, but I think every fight we're seeing something different, and I think this could be a fight where he could capitalize, because the win over Syed Awad was good. The win over Roger Huerta tells us nothing, because Huerta's been basically not the same since he left Bellator. And I think this could be a closer fight than people think. I'm curious to see the odds on this. I imagine Henderson will probably be like a 2-1 favorite, but I think Piccolotti is absolutely a game opponent.
Yeah, I can't find odds for anything but the main event so far.
Yeah, same here.
Co-main event, a title match. Ilima-Lei Macfarlane, somebody that Bellator obviously wants to be a big star and is putting in the work to do so. They gave her the star treatment in Hawaii. She's back in action against Veta Arteaga. Arteaga 5-2. She's got 2 losses in Bellator. Had a bit of a winning streak since then and won 2 fights in a row. I think that Ilima-Lei Macfarlane is a more well-rounded fighter. There's always the threat of a submission with Ilima-Lei Macfarlane. James, I'm interested on your take, because thus far, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane in her amateur and pro career has not tasted defeat, and not as much adversity as a lot of women. That is something, I guess, that you could say that Arteaga has battled, but I see Ilima-Lei Macfarlane running away with this one.
Yeah, I never like to overlook an opponent, but I have to here. I mean, I think at this point they're just giving, they're just keeping Ilima-Lei active. She really should be in the UFC where she can really test herself, because I mean they're running out of contenders at this point. I think Arteaga has a nice winning streak heading into this one, but it's nothing Ilima hasn't seen. I mean, her win over Valerie Letourneau was super impressive, and Valerie's fought at the highest level in the UFC, fought for a strawweight title. The fact that she was able to do that in Hawaii, all that pressure and everything, and get that done makes me think she can beat pretty much anyone. She's got a good training camp too. Like, she trains at San Diego Combat Academy with, Liz Carmouche and Pearl Gonzalez. So she's getting a lot of different looks. It's going to be another second round submission. She'll have another dominant win, and then they'll just line up whoever's next. But Alima's the real deal. I think she's awesome.
Joe?
Yeah, I think the submission victory is going to happen here. I know that, I'm just looking at her record right now, and, Arteaga, her last win was a guillotine choke, so it doesn't mean she can grapple with Leia properly, McFarlane, but we'll see what happens. I'm just going with the champ here. I think she's got plenty of time to secure a takedown. If she can do it early in a round, I think she emerges victorious.
Ilima-Lei Macfarlane has stayed so active throughout her career too. I think she started fighting as an amateur in 2014, and since then I think she's got 14 fights. So I mean, that's very, very active. And she's doing that throughout her late 20s. And the win over Valerie Letourneau, like I look at Valerie Letourneau and I'm like, I don't know what Arteaga can offer that Valerie couldn't. And she still couldn't get it done. Main event, Bellator welterweight Grand Prix tournament, also a welterweight title fight. John Fitch challenges Rory MacDonald. Now, Rory MacDonald is a massive favorite here, and I think for good reason. I don't see John Fitch taking this one. James, I know that you were able to speak to John Fitch, at least in the months leading up to the fight. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think the line is a little high just because you never know. I mean, Rory's had a couple of fights that, where he's taken a beating, like the Lawler fight, and then, coming off that loss to Mousasi, which was completely one-sided. You wonder how you can keep coming back and improve. If you're looking at this on paper, I mean, clearly Rory has all the advantages in the stand-up. I think even wrestling, I think he, can neutralize a lot of those takedowns from John Fitch. But yeah, I will not be. I mean, if you're going to bet this fight, the money is on John for sure. I mean, he could. He's been off for a while, but really hasn't taken that much damage in his last couple of fights. And I think, his durability and there's a lot to be, said about, his career as well in terms of some of the wins that he's had. But Rory should get this done. I imagine this isn't going to be an exciting fight. I think it's going to be kind of the type of fight where Rory's going to kind of just play it safe and get the win, because that's really what he needs here. I mean, I don't think he's done. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, after losing the way he did to Mousasi, he'll never be the same. They said that about Lawler, and look, he beat Paul Daly, he beat Douglas Lima. Like, clearly he's not done yet. I think he'll get the win, but I have a feeling this could be kind of a very unappealing fight, but Rory will just go out there, have the smart game plan, get it done, get a decision here. I do think it will go the distance. I think Rory will get his hand raised.
I do too, and I think that's probably the last thing that Bellator wants. They probably want a quick finish. That way they can move on with the tournament, and that Rory MacDonald can gain a little bit more buzz. I hope that's how it unfolds from a visual perspective, Joe. What do you think is going to happen?
And new Bellator champion.
You're lying.
He's going to win. Fitch will win. Fitch will win. Mark my words.
Decision? How does he get it done, Joe? Let's hear it.
TKO fourth round.
Does he bring a gun into the ring?
TKO fourth round.
Okay.
I have to go against you guys. I have to. I can't go on the bandwagon.
I'm trying to find John Fitch's last win by knockout here.
When was the Civil War?
1812, I believe it was. Yeah, no, he wins by TKO.
Okay, his last TKO win, get this, guys. I could be wrong with this unless I'm scrolling too fast. Thiago Alves, June 2006.
Proves my point.
I love the fact that you had to scroll.
He's due in this decade. The numbers prove it. He's due in this decade. It's got to happen.
Oh, man.